Good afternoon. My name is Brandon Carter. I'm an application engineer with Ally PLM Solutions. I want to welcome you to the Ally PLM NX Lunch Bytes series. For those of you not familiar with Lunch Bytes is a series to briefly explore capabilities within NX that are often overlooked. Please check our website for upcoming Lunch Bytes topics and dates. We want our Lunch Bytes to be valuable to you, so please let us hear your suggestions on topics. And if you could send those to us via email, or there's also a place on our website, allyplm.com, where you can suggest a Lunch Bites topic. If you have any questions regarding today's session, please write them down and send them in an email. There are several of you on the line with us today, therefore you'll be in listen-only mode. Today's topic is on Product Template Studio. So what is Product Template Studio? We're going to take a look at what it is, why use it, how it's licensed, and how we actually use it. How do we create this template, and then look at some different examples. Our goal today is to introduce this tool to you and to kind of look at it from a high level. So we have these useful parametric models in NX. And what we're looking at with Product Template Studio is how to reuse these, how to make it easier, how to make it consistent with all our users to reuse these models. So that's where Product Template Studio comes in. What we're going to do is take that useful model and add a code-free template type user interface, meaning a nice little GUI interface that's easy to follow for the end user. And we don't have to be a programmer to create this. Then we have these different NX product templates using Product Template Studio in our reuse library. And then that allows us to reuse from one spot and reuse these as a standard type template across all our users. Before we get too deep into this, I can't remember exactly how many months ago it was, a few months ago, I did a Lunch Bytes on the reuse library, just kind of a high level of the types of things that can be stored in there. And as always, our replays can be found on our website, www.allyplm.com, and here is actually the replay of the reuse library I did. So if you want to generally learn some information about reuse library before Product Template Studio, you could go back and check out this replay. So a template starts with a good parametric NX model, meaning we have a nice clean history tree. We have a nice set of user-defined expressions maybe driving the size and shape of the model. And the template author comes in and adds a nice user interface to that template, and then it makes it easier for all end users to reuse that and create or use valid inputs. They can both be numerical inputs with expression values, and it can also be geometry, meaning we can actually come in and edit sketches, etc. End users interact with only the clean, simplified user interface that we're speaking of. They can be individual NX parts, meaning components, or even assemblies. So that's kind of what it is, and like I said, I'll show you examples here in a minute, but why is this helpful? And I've mentioned some of those items. Having this nice simplified user interface allows for the correct usage and standards built into the templates. It also allows for easy interaction with complex designs. So if we have these templates set up in maybe the reuse library, all the end users are going to be able to get to these standard templates, and if it has a nice simplified user interface, it's going to make it easier. They're going to be more productive using these templates. With that being said, it maintains standards and practices, especially as your engineering workforce changes. You know, as people retire, as you have new, younger workforce comes in, you can maintain those practices. You're not starting over and trying to recreate that engineering knowledge. And because it's coming from the reuse library and it's a template form, it promotes consistency and reuse. So how is Product Template Studio licensed? It is an add-on product. NX Product Template Studio, there's an author, and this license provides the actual tool called Product Template Studio to build and create the template. Then there's also a consumer license, so once the templates are created, then the end user can interact with the templates created by the Product Template Studio author, and the user interface will automatically be invoked as the templates are consumed from the reuse library, or at least a common location. So basically it's authored in this Product Template Studio window, which you'll see here in a minute. And then here I just have a screenshot of the reuse library where we're pulling these templates out and consuming them and using and generating our models. Excuse me. So where is Product Template Studio, the author piece, at? If you go to Start, All Programs, underneath your NX version, underneath NX Tools, you'll see Product Template Studio. It'll fire up a separate tool application. And here's what it looks like. And I'm going to show you live here in a second. So let's go ahead and jump into some different examples and show you how to build some of these from scratch, both as an author and then how to use them as a consumer. So here I just have a blank assembly, nothing in here. And before I jump in and create examples, and I actually showed this a little bit in the reuse library lunch Bytes I did. If I go to the reuse library, underneath reuse examples, this is just a generic set of data, set of examples that is delivered when you install NX. And if you look underneath PTS templates, you'll see that one's delivered. So if I have a consumer license, I can see an example that's already there. If I pull in this sprocket gear just by dragging and dropping, you'll see that's going to give me this nice simplified user interface. If I double click inside the template, you'll see this would be what the consumer, the end user, sees. I need to generate this gear, and you'll see that I only have access to parameters that I would need to change. It's going to maintain standards. So as I start changing these values, you'll see that the model is updating. Overall thickness. So if I drive some of these parameters, the biggest thing is just to see that the model is updating. Down here you see I have a pattern, number of teeth, if I want to change that. And really all it's doing is driving the parametric model, but it's simplified, it's easier to use. You'll see that you can also access geometry, things like sketches. If I want to actually come in here and edit the cross section, I can get into these expressions, change the 2D geometry in the sketch, and update the revolved feature. But I'm accessing it from a nice clean user interface. So there is an example that is delivered with NX if you have a consumer license. And now let's look at how we want to create these. So I'm just going to come over here to a part I have, and let's start with a simple concept. So here we have a I-beam shape, a component part. We have a nice clean parametric model. You see I have a sketch, I've extruded that sketch, and I've added some edge blends. Let's come in here and activate this sketch. And you'll also see, if I back up here for a second, that I have 3D PMI just showing the values that I'm going to drive here with this model. So if I go back into the sketch, right now they have the names, the P9, P1, etc. I want them to be a little more meaningful, so I'm going to go ahead and call this height. Come up here, we'll call this expression width. Just make it a little more meaningful. We'll call this flange thickness, and we'll call this web thickness. You get the idea. So I'm going to go ahead and finish that sketch. If I check out my expressions dialog for that sketch, you'll see that I've renamed all those. I have flange thickness, height, web thickness, and width. If I come down here to extrude, and then maybe I need P1 to be length. Helps if I can type. There we go. And then finally for the radius, the blend there, let's go ahead and just call this radius. So those are going to be the expressions that we drive. One more thing I want to do, I want to come up here and go ahead and assign a material to this part. And the other thing I want to do is I want to track the weight. So I'm going to come up here and measure the body. and we'll make it associative so it tracks that measurement. So then if I come back into expressions and look at that measurement, maybe I want to call this weight instead of P32. So now if I come back to expressions, looked at all the named expressions, I'm going to drive flange thickness, height, length, radius, web thickness, width, and then monitor the weight of it. So let me go ahead and save this guy. And now what we want to do is go ahead and take this over to Product Template Studio. So I'm going to go ahead and go to Start. And you can also create a shortcut for that. I do have a shortcut on my desktop. I just wanted to show you where this is at. So underneath NX Tools, we'll go ahead and launch Product Template Studio. So this is what Product Template Studio looks like. You'll see that I'm going to go ahead and open that I-beam up, but I'm going to go ahead and grab that I-beam. And what it's going to do is it's going to bring in the expressions, basically the parametric model of that. So in the slides, I mentioned we're going to create this template, this nice user interface, without needing to be a code guy, a guy that writes code. Over here, you'll see options to create the user interface, like different type blocks, collapsible groups, things that you would see inside of your normal commands inside of NX. I can label, I can add actions, I can have layer control, alternate solutions, and then I can do some assembly items with arrangements and part families. Over here on the right, you'll see I have the Template Explorer. This is where I want to build how detailed my template is. Here I can go out and get to different locations and drag items. Here underneath this eyeball is the Model Explorer. These are the parameters, the expressions that we renamed and are that driving the model. And then over here is going to be a preview of what this user interface we're creating for this particular I-beam in this case. So I'm just going to start, and I want to give it a name. So I'm just going to call it my I-beam app. And underneath here, maybe I want to create a little bit of a screenshot, so you'll see that I can browse to my machine. Bear with me 1 second. And I'm going to come in here and I have a little image set up. So you'll see that we've started the I-beam app and it has a label so far. Another thing, and I don't know if you can hear this over the audio or not, but you'll hear different chimes if everything is successful as you're kind of, for lack of a better term, programming this. So you'll see there's different sounds if it's successful, has information if there's a warning or an error. Basically you get feedback for as you kind of drag and drop the program, this template. So I want to create some collapsible groups. So I'm just going to drag and drop into a particular app, or in this case this user interface. I'm going to go ahead and drag 3 of those as placeholders. For group 1, this is going to be my dimensions, or maybe we want to call it our inputs. For group 2, this is going to be where we monitor the weight. So I'm going to call this feedback. And for group 3, maybe I need a little more information, maybe some help. If there's a site or an HTML page where the user can go to get help about this particular application that we're creating. So underneath this group, you'll see that it's putting those collapsible groups. Now, all I'm going to do is now come over here and drag and drop what I want to be in a specific group. So maybe I want flange thickness, height, width, and the web thickness over here. And maybe we want to go ahead and put the length in there as well. Excuse me, underneath group 2 is where I want to monitor the measurement, which is the weight in this case. So I'm just dragging and dropping to where I want these particular items to be. So you see the preview. So here's the inputs, here are the expressions So the end user is going to be able to drive these expressions, get feedback for the weight, and then have a place to go get more help on the application. So we're creating this user interface without the need to know how to program. So as we go through here, first of all with the flange thickness, maybe I want to go ahead and spell that out. What this means over here with this immediate update means as soon as I change the value, the model will update. That's what that's saying. I can have this be a key in. Maybe I come back up here to web thickness. I'm going to have that update instantly as well. Come up here to height. And we'll have that update. Maybe instead of key in, I want to have a list of choices. Here would be where we could refer to our handbook and go ahead and enter values for our handbook for our I-beam. That way we can maintain a standard practice. So there I've created a list. Maybe I want to do the same thing with the width. We'll have that update right away as well, and we'll do another list. We'll go ahead and do the same thing. And finally here, the length, just to show something different. I'm going to have this update, but maybe I want to do a little scale so that you get a little slider bar to change the length. Maybe I want this to go from a foot, maybe 6 inches, to 96 inches, and we'll have them increment by 1, and we'll have even numbers for this example. If I go into the weight is going to be tracked, so I really don't want the user to be able to type anything here. So what we're going to do is make this read only, because we're going to monitor that, right? The user is not going to actually be driving that. And for help, just to show you how this works, maybe I want to go ahead and put an action in there in that group. Maybe I want it to be a help. You'll see there's different action buttons you can have: browser help, show check information, Java VB if you did write a program, or a journal even. So I'm just going to call this I-beam help. And I'm going to go ahead and just browse to the same image, just so you see how it works. Excuse me. So you see here we've created the name of the app. We put a nice image showing what we're driving. We're going to drive these particular expressions. We're going to get feedback of the weight, and if we need some help, there's an action button. Once we're done, all you're going to do is publish this. If everything's successful, you hear a chime. If you have something incorrect, you'll get feedback with one of the other sounds. So I'm going to close out of this. Now, when I open this file back up, you'll see that it is labeled a product template. Just by going through the product template studio, it's a product template. So now as a consumer, I would be driving this. Also, this is a product template, so it uses something called a reusable component. So whenever I edit this reusable component, you see I get a nice dialog, and I can make changes to this. And because I have it set to update immediately, you'll see the model changing. Here I can pick from my list, and here I can adjust the length. You'll notice the feedback I get of monitoring the weight because of the measured body. So it's just taking the parametrics ideas of the model, and we're building a nice user interface without needing to know any code. If I need more help, I can come in here and go to a page which will give the user some more help. So we have this template set up. How is this going to work with an assembly? So let me just fire up a blank assembly here. And I'm just going to throw it in this guy. So inside of my reuse library, we talked about underneath reuse examples, here you had this sprocket gear. I have a path set up to my Lunch Bytes folder where I have this I-beam. So here is the I-beam. I just published a template. And underneath your customer defaults, so if I go to Utilities, Customer Defaults, and underneath Gateway we go to the Reuse Library, you'll see that there's a spot here underneath Reusable Component where I can name these, have naming rules for how they're going to show up in the assembly. And there's also naming methods if you are a Teamcenter user, but just know that underneath Reusable Component you'll have some naming rules for these templates. And you'll see where you can override those in a second. So if I drag and drop this into my assembly, you'll see here's my template. How do I want to place it in the assembly? You know, your typical move absolute origin by constraints as you might expect. If I come in here and double click this line item, here is my nice clean user interface for this particular model. So I'm going to go ahead and make some changes here. And we'll make this guy a little smaller, adjust the length a little bit, and you'll once again you see the feedback we're getting. Now you'll see that underneath this bottom option it says rename options. So here is that rename rule we saw, template name, and what it's going to do, this question mark, is it's going to say, hey, I'm going to call this 001. I want to make this a unique component because we've adjusted length or whatever it may be. So I haven't changed anything there, but I'm going to go ahead and drop this in. Now I have this particular part in my assembly. If I need to make changes because it is a product template, I just right click and go edit reusable component, and then you'll see that we can make a change to it. So this is its own file, as you see the underscore 001. If I come in here and drag another one in, maybe I'm going to do a move this time and just kind of pull these out so you can see maybe we're laying out some framework. If I come in here, make some changes again, make this one a little longer so you can see that it is different. And once again, the rename options, now it's going to be a 002. So if I go ahead and drop that, you'll see that now I have a 002. They are different part files. If I needed another occurrence of that 001, I would just go and add that 001. And now you'll see that there's two occurrences, and with the new NX9 you'll see that it packed that automatically, so you'll see two occurrences of 001. If I make a change because they're the same part, you'll see that they both change in size. If I needed this one to be different, I could use my assembly tools and I could come in and say I need to make it unique. We'll go ahead and give it a name. Maybe instead of 3 we'll call it C. So now you'll see that this is still a reusable component, but it can be edited differently. So basically I'm getting the geometry in there and I'm just using normal assembly tools to work with these. If I go back to the reuse library, we'll pull in one more example. Go ahead and make this guy longer. And got this set to move. Let me pull it over here to the right. And underneath rename options, instead of using a 003, I can come in here and put user defined text. So if I call that D, you'll see that now it's called D. So just showing you how we can use those templates now. We get the nice clean user interface. We can adjust them. They are reusable components. And then we can use assembly tools like add if we want to add another occurrence or make unique or replace, just as you would with a normal file. I'm going to go ahead and close all these out. And let's take a look at another example. Here, this sheet metal part. So the other one we did the I-beam, just a simple part file. Maybe we want to look at how to do the same thing with sheet metal. It's the same idea. See if I go up here into expressions. I have some of these already labeled. Here I have the length of the tab, the width of the tab. I have the height defined with the height of the flange. I have a normal cutout, which is the center diameter, as called cut diameter, and I have number of holes, my pattern. So basically I'm using the expressions of the parametric model as we saw earlier. Also with sheet metal, you'll see that we get the default bend radius, material thickness, and so forth. So I'm going to go ahead and not change anything. It's set up the way I want it. And let's take this into Product Template Studio. So I'm just going to grab my sheet metal bracket. And once again, I can give it clean names, right? Sheet metal bracket. And you'll see that I'm getting the preview of that. Maybe I don't want this image. You know, I could add an image. Maybe I want to add some more collapsible groups. So maybe group 1, I want this to be dimensions. And group 2, I want it to say material properties. Maybe I'm going to change the material thickness and the default bend radius of this. So for group 1, I just want to go to my expressions. And I'm going to pull in length and width. For the flange, I'm going to grab the height. We'll grab the cut diameter. We'll grab the number of holes. So what expressions I want to change. For group 2, I'm going to come down here and find my bend radius, for example, and also the material thickness, which were the global parameters of the part. Once again, you'll see that we can, add our different dimensions. I'm just going to leave these as key-in values just to save a little time here. I'm going to have this update. Again, we'll call this width. Have this update immediately again. Height. This update. And finally, we'll have number of holes. Alright, and if we go down here to group 2, have this change immediately again. Let's call this bend radius. And we'll call this one material thickness. So here's what we got. We got the sheet metal bracket user interface. Got length, width, height, cut diameter, number of holes, the bend radius, and we'll get that to update, material thickness. So there's our simple template, just to give you an idea once again how we're using those expressions, and we're just dragging and dropping to make the dialogue the way we want. So in this case, I have a error, so I got the different sound. So if we take a look here, we got bend radius a key in, we got material thickness a key in. It's inside this group. Make sure I put them in the right group. See how I didn't have those indented. So now it's successful, so now they're actually inside that group. So it's just giving me feedback to what level I actually had those expressions, but now that's taken care of. Alright. So if we just open back up that part, now it's a product template. I can take a look at my nice clean dialog, go ahead and make some changes. You'll see how it grows because I had it set to NX update. Change the height of that with the flanges. Make that center diameter smaller. How many holes do I want? Basically updating the pattern. And here you'll see we're changing the material properties. So the bend radius globally there. Go ahead and make that 0.2. You'll see the bends change. And the material thickness will exaggerate that so you can see it on the screen. We change that as well. So the same idea, just to show you a little different geometry. Now I mentioned that you can do this with assemblies. If I come over here take a look at this example as a consumer, as an end user. Here you see an example of an assembly, and you'll notice that there's one component that is a product template at the component level, and then you also see that there's a piece here at the assembly which is a product template. So there's probably some kind of arrangement, and you'll see that in a second. So if I come over here and just use the edit reusable component, you'll see that there's one variable that's driving here, and it's, once again on top of that parametric model, and you'll see that the motor behind it of this mounting plate is tracking with it because of an assembly constraint. Maybe I need to come in here and go ahead and swap out a part. Come in here and grab a different motor. 32. There we go. Go ahead and swap this part out, and it found the assembly constraints, but now I need to adjust this reusable component again. So I'm going to go back into edit reusable component, and let's go ahead and pull this guy out a little farther to get the clearance we need, and you'll see how we can make that change. As far as the reusable component up here at the assembly level, what that's going to show us is that it has different arrangements associated with it. So maybe I want to go ahead and swap this out with the exploded state. So this particular assembly level product template is using the arrangements built at the assembly level. So just to give you an example of using that at the assembly level. One final example. Here you see that we have this bottle, and there's a there's a product template associated with that. So here you see that there are some volume design targets. So as we adjust the overall size of this or control it even further with sketches, we want to make sure that we stay within these design requirements. So if I come in here and make the height a little bigger, you'll see that whenever I go ahead and check this, it ran a little check to make sure that it's in the desired realm. So here you see 1997, 1900. Let me go ahead and hit apply. So we're going to update that 260, and you'll see that now it's up to 2039. If I go ahead and change this, make this a little bigger, the width, go ahead and hit apply, let the model update, you'll see now it has failed. It's over top of that 2100 that we want. So we know that we'd have to fine tune that, or obviously if we can adjust our target 2200 and you go a little bigger, wasn't paying attention, you'll see now it is within those design requirements. So here we're adjusting it by overall pack size, the height, width, and depth, these driving dimensions here, but you'll see that we can come in here and actually edit the sketches as I mentioned earlier. So if I need to make some changes, redefine that, and give it a little more control in a specific area, you'll see that we can drive those sketches. And here not only are we driving the shape of the model, but we are also getting feedback that we're in the particular design requirements for volume, and then you'll see some help associated with that as I mentioned earlier. So there's another example of using Product Template Studio and the feedback we get and kind of standardizing our engineering knowledge using product templates and using those inside of the Reuse library. So to summarize, a product template is, as a consumer goes, provides a simple user interface on a complex data set. It's easier to learn because we don't need to know all the particular expressions, all the design intent of the model, as long as we understand what we need to change inside that simple user interface. We can have embedded validation. I did a check with weight. The last example did a check with volume. It promotes consistency because all end users are using the same templates from the Reuse library. Like I said, the reuse library can be used to deliver the templates, and this is going to create an environment that that promotes consistency, but also creates an environment for reuse rather than start from scratch. So to wrap up here, as always, our replays are on our website www.allyplm.com. You'll also see that the upcoming topics and dates are there. Upcoming training at Ally PLM, our essentials are NX CAD fundamentals, basically 5-day class for new users. Have NX CAM fundamentals, turning. All of our classes can be taught online. There's our website for more information. There's my contact information if you had any questions. I appreciate your time. Thank you for your attention this afternoon. I hope you found this session informative. Like I said, we wanted to give you appreciation for what Product Template Studio is and how it's licensed. Please email us your suggestions for future Lunch Bite topics, or go to our Lunch Bites page and suggest them there. Email me any questions you may have had during this session. Appreciate your time, and let me know if you have any questions once again. We have some Lunch Bites coming up on what's new in NX9 for both CAD and CAM, so check those out, and hope you have a great day.